Kadyrov is done. Chechens want to finish this war as soon as possible. Putin finally admits the real losses. Ukrainians returned a key city in the east, and approximately 5 Russian fighter jets were destroyed in less than a week. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude, and we are back. Let's get straight to the point and talk about some So, yes, I held it inside me for 2 weeks, now it's finally out. Okay, so today we have this video of another Russian Z-Patriot modifying his car to be a so-called Sarmat Mobil. Yes, there is even a name for this, and this is basically a threat to the West and specifically to America that, look at me, I'm carrying a nuclear missile on top of my car. Then this one is designed to go to Washington, so Americans, get ready. And I mean, you already probably know that this is not the only one guy who does these horrendous things to his vehicle. So, long story short, one of them, whenever he was driving on the highway, most likely in Russia, he got into accident, and luckily the nuclear intercontinental ballistic missile did not detonate. Apparently it was only made out of carton, wood and some metal. What a surprise, right? And I can gladly say that, guys, the nuclear war is now delayed for at least several more months. Yes, thank you. But okay, now let's quickly talk about Russians losing 5 fighter jets in less than 1 week. And then we're gonna go to the east of the country, where Ukrainians were able to retake an extremely crucial city. And then we're gonna talk about Putin finally admitting the real losses, and Chechens wanting to end this war as soon as possible. And first of all, speaking about the fighter jets, you probably already heard about Russians losing 3 Su-34 bomber/fighter jets, which they used to attack position of Ukrainians in Krinky, and this happened last week. Even the Russians themselves acknowledged that yes, unfortunately these losses did happen, and most likely they were intercepted, thanks to air defense system called Patriot. But then, at the beginning of already this week, another Su-34 fighter jet of Russians has been intercepted above Mariupol region. But wait, there is more, because later on, another Russian Su-30 fighter jet has also been intercepted above Odessa, and it has been confirmed later by the Ukrainian army. And as you can see, over this Christmas break, Ukrainians were able to intercept 31 Russian Shahed drones, 2 missiles, and above mentioned 2 fighter jets, Su-34 and Su-30. And guess what? Russians were like, we also want to intercept Ukrainian fighter jets, so let's come up with something. So they published this picture of allegedly F-16 Ukrainian fighter jet in Odessa, which has been destroyed. But there is one big but. Ukrainians allegedly do not have F-16 fighter jets just yet. And just a very quick search by image in Google shows you that actually this picture was from 2018. Russians decided to use this to counter-argument the Ukrainian narrative about destroying the fighter jets and reducing the dominance of Russians in the air, and as always, they failed. And since I briefly mentioned Krinky in the beginning of this chapter, let me quickly give you 2 quick updates about this settlement before we switch our attention to the east of the country. And first of all, according to Ukrainian sources, they were able to intercept and repel 3 attacks of Russians against Krinky coming from the eastern direction. And then later on they even released us this video where a Ukrainian FPV drone was able to destroy and completely obliterate a Russian infantry fighting vehicle or an armored personnel carrier driving towards Krinky, and pretty much it was completely halted. The soldiers ran away, there were injured, there were eliminated ones, the ones who fell asleep for a very long time, and it is pretty much safe to say that only one single Ukrainian drone was able to stop another assault of Russians against Krinky. And so yes, now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the east of Ukraine. But guys, first of all, since we are back to daily news reporting, if you do like this style of daily content and if you do want to help my work, can you please simply like this video and subscribe to my channel? Believe it or not, it is an exceptional, extraordinary help from you guys by simply subscribing. So thank you so much. And so yes, first of all, according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians were able to reportedly gain some ground next to Kreminna and also next to Avdiivka over the last several days and even weeks. But at the same time, Ukrainians were able to destroy a tank of Russians along with their armored fortified position located to the east of Spirne. And in addition to that, right here is also another video from Spirne nearby, where Russians are bringing a lot of their infantry using armored personnel carriers, then they dismount and they start approaching the position of Ukrainians. Ukrainians were able to simply repel this attack, and besides that, then it was Ukrainians who were chasing Russians. They approached the trenches of Russian soldiers and were able even to take some prisoners of war. As we get closer to Bakhmut area, right here is absolutely unbelievable video of a single Ukrainian soldier with the help of a lot of grenades, ammunition and simply other weapons. He was able to stop the advancement of Russians by simply destroying them. And yes, once again, this was only one single Ukrainian soldier. And probably one of the biggest achievements of Ukrainians over the last couple of days is they were able to take back a significant territory of Khromove back, as you can see from this map, which is confirmed by the Deep State map. And long story short, this is a pretty crucial city located to the north of Bakhmut, or I would even say to the northwest of Bakhmut, because this is one of the main positions of Russians, where they can send even more assaults against Ukrainians. So by Ukrainians, by retaking Khromove, they reduce the danger, first of all, to themselves. As we approach Avdiivka, we make a quick stop in Novoselivka Druga, located to the north of this settlement, and Ukrainians reportedly were able to destroy an armored vehicle of Russians located in this city. And then, as we move even closer to Avdiivka, right here is the video from Stepove, located to the northwest of this settlement, where a Russian tank full of Russian soldiers riding on top of it has been stopped by Ukrainian attacks, and then spontaneously and very suspiciously self-ignited. And now we probably go to the most intense part of today's video. Right here is the video from Avdiivka, where Russians are using another of their mid assaults, and this time reportedly it was more than 300 of them. And as you can see, they're simply running defenseless without any support from artillery or armored vehicles, literally up across an open field. And then Ukrainians, reportedly using a self-propelled artillery system called Baghdana, which is by the way their own development, they're able to completely eliminate this another so-called mid-assault by Russians, and more than 300 of them reportedly fell asleep. The full and most importantly uncensored video of this completely meaningless Russian attack will be available on my Patreon. And guys, if you do not mind, just please go ahead and check it. There is 1 week of free access on Patreon for you to see if you like this service or not. The link is down below. And also, I just resumed posting fully uncensored episodes of The Russian Dude on my Patreon as well, so just one more reason to go and check it. Thank you so much. And so yes, now just a couple of last words from the east of the country before we talk about Putin finally acknowledging the real losses and what Kadyrov wants to do in the near future. And so first of all, speaking about Maryinka, another city in the east of Ukraine, recently the Minister of Defense of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, reported to Putin that Russians were able to fully capture this settlement. It even looks like by this map it is kinda confirmed, but Ukrainians later on they were able to refute and deny this statement, saying that Ukrainians they still hold their grounds in the last couple of blocks to the west of Maryinka. But most importantly and ridiculously enough, the wordings that Shoigu chose is that Russia liberated Maryinka. And I mean, just take a look at this video of quote-unquote liberated Maryinka by Russians. Once again, he called it liberation. Right here also is the full overall view of this settlement. As you can see, this is in no way liberated by any standards, including the war ones. And so yes, now I have just one question to you guys. What do you think are the consequences of this never-ending and mostly failing Russian meat assaults? Well, I think it is pretty obvious answer that the losses will be enormous. And even Putin himself, in one of his most recent conversations with the people of Russia, where obviously all the questions to him were carefully selected, even though indirectly, but he did confirm big losses that Russians are suffering. And according to his statistics, right now there are 617,000 Russians fighting in Ukraine. He also mentioned that in the beginning of the war, 250,000 Russians entered the country, then 244,000 were mobilized, and approximately 486,000 were so-called volunteers. And if we add these three numbers and subtract 617,000 which are still fighting, we can see that the Russian losses, according to simple math, according to Putin himself, are approximately 363,000 people. Which, to be honest, at the moment of that statement, approximately on December 14th, is even more than the official statistics by the West, which claim the total number of Russian losses were approximately 342,000. But wait, there is more. The head of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, he also did hint us that his country, they already are tired and they want to end this war as soon as possible, most likely somewhere in the middle of the next year. And this assumption was also made because of his own conversation with the people of Chechnya, also made approximately in the same timing as the one Putin did. And yes, whenever he was answering one of the questions from the people, he did assume that the war, special military operation in Ukraine, might be over somewhere in the summer of 2024. He is mentioning that Ukrainian resources are close to over, both human, weapons and financial resources, and if it will be his will, the war will be over even sooner, no more than 3 months, he said. He then also obviously emphasized the narrative of Putin that Russia is always open to negotiations, it is Ukraine which prohibits them. And ultimately, he mentioned that Chechnya, they over-completed the mobilization goal, which was presented by Putin, by 1,500%. Which just once again, according to him, it was also an indirect assumption that the people of Chechnya already sacrificed enough and it is time to stop it. And I mean, honestly, no surprise here, it is not the war of Chechens, it is not even the war of Russians, it is only war of Putin. And as more time passes, hopefully even more people of Russia will start realizing this. And guys, I'm also very excited to be back to reporting this daily news for you. And also thank you all so much for watching over the last couple of weeks my special episodes. It does mean a lot. Thank you so much. And if you don't want to miss, as always, any of these future updates, can you please simply like this video and subscribe to my channel. It only takes one click. Thank you so much, patrons, for your support, and see you tomorrow.